Being lost feels terrifying, doesn't it? That tightness in your chest, the quiet panic crawling into your thoughts, whispering that you're failing, wandering aimlessly, maybe even fading away. But, and I want you to truly sit with this for a moment, what if being lost isn't a sign of failure at all? What if it's a calling? To step into the unknown, to leave behind everything you're clinging to so you can finally find something greater? Close your eyes for a second and imagine this. You walking alone in a dense forest. The branches overhead obscure the light, casting everything in shadows. The path you thought you could trust simply vanishes under your feet, scattering your sense of direction into the wind. You begin to panic. Where am I? How did this happen? You want desperately to find a way back, a sign that will lead you to safety. But then, you stop. Something makes you pause. Rather than battling with the fear, you breathe. And for the first time, you notice the world around you, the soft crunch of leaves beneath your shoes, the ancient moss trembling under the weight of your uncertainty. You've been so focused on knowing your way forward that you almost missed how your surroundings were holding you in that very moment. This is the beauty we're exploring today. What if feeling lost isn't a problem at all, but an invitation? What if we've been chasing ourselves, when all along the real transformation was waiting for us in the wandering? How many times have you been told that the ultimate goal in life is to find yourself? Society hands us this idea on a silver platter. From the moment we're old enough to understand ambition, we're given a roadmap, a vision of who we're supposed to be. Maybe it's a career milestone, a relationship that looks good from the outside, or a sense of certainty you feel promised to eventually achieve. But here's the thing, no one ever teaches us what to do when those signposts don't appear. When the certainty we worked so hard to chase dissolves like mist. They don't tell us about the crushing weight of not knowing, the part where the map stops making sense. You see, the idea of finding yourself comes with a hidden trap. It assumes there's a fixed version of you somewhere out there waiting to be uncovered, an endpoint, an idealized, ready-made self whose existence has already been predetermined. But what do you really find when you follow that path? It often leads to exhaustion, doesn't it? You build identities out of expectation. You chase milestones hoping they'll fill a void. And when they fail to deliver, you're left with a haunting question. What's wrong with me? But let me ask you something braver. What if everything you thought you needed to find was never missing to begin with? What if who you are isn't out there somewhere in the future but alive in the uncertainty, right now? This leads us to a truth that goes against every instinct you've been taught. Surrendering to the unknown is not defeat. It's freedom. Have you ever heard the poet Rainer Maria Rilke's words? He wrote, "Be patient toward all that is unsolved in your heart and try to love the questions themselves. Do not seek the answers because you would not be able to live them. The point is to live everything." The elegance of this idea lies in its simplicity. You cannot rush through the unfolding of your life. You cannot shortcut your way to knowing. Life is not a puzzle to solve. It's a story told moment by moment, chapter by chapter. Here's an analogy. When you plant a seed, you don't demand flowers the very next day. The seed must break itself open, send roots into the dark, unfamiliar soil, and linger unseen beneath the surface. This unseen work is necessary. And it's only by trusting that process, allowing time and uncertainty the space to bloom, that the seed eventually finds the light. What if your own journey is like that seed? What if the very chaos you're so afraid of, the moments where you feel stripped of direction, is where your truest growth is happening? Let's reflect on why uncertainty feels like such an enemy in the first place. The human mind craves control. It clings to habits, definitions, labels, anything that gives it grounding in a chaotic world. And when those anchors are removed, we panic. But here's the irony. The tighter you cling to control, the less freedom you actually experience. Carl Jung said, "What you resist persists." When you push away uncertainty, when you try to box your life neatly into labels of success or failure, you trap yourself in resistance. Emotions like fear and anxiety become louder, not quieter. But here's the liberating truth. Uncertainty is not chaos. It's possibility. Every great leap forward, whether a personal breakthrough, a creative project, or an unexpected love required stepping into the unknown without guarantees. Growth doesn't come from certainty. It comes from courage. You don't need ironclad control over the future. What you need is trust in the unfolding. What if I told you that the moment you stop running from uncertainty, the tight grip it has on you begins to dissolve? Here's the thing. The discomfort of not knowing isn't inherently bad. It's the stories we attach to it that create suffering. When we feel lost in life, our minds immediately kick into overdrive, trying to reach conclusions. I'll never figure this out. I'm failing. I'll be stuck here forever. But pause. Look deeper. Is that really true? Or are these thoughts just projections of your fear, not the reality of the situation? Let's try reframing. What if being lost was a signal, not of failure but of growth? And imagine this. You're hiking up a mountain. At the base, everything is predictable. The ground is smooth, the air familiar. But as you climb higher, the terrain starts to change. The path becomes uneven, the air thinner. You lose sight of your destination. Your muscles ache. But then you realize this discomfort is exactly the point. The challenge means you're not standing still. It means you're moving into uncharted territory where transformation is possible. This change in perspective is everything. When you reframe being lost as an essential part of growth, you free yourself from the need to have all the answers. Now, let's shift gears and talk about how this journey into the unknown affects the world around you. Specifically, your relationships. Here's a lesson I wish everyone was taught. Detachment is not the same as disconnection. When you carry the fear of being lost into your relationships, it leaks everywhere. You might cling to people who make you feel safe or adopt behaviors that seek affirmation from others. Or perhaps you overanalyze every interaction, trying to control their outcomes. But detachment changes everything. Detachment doesn't mean shutting people out. It means no longer tethering your sense of self-worth to their approval or their criticism. It means not carrying the weight of needing others to define your value. Paradoxically, this shift often flips relational dynamics on their head. When you stop trying to prove yourself, people respond differently. You're no longer locked in the exhausting dance of chasing validation or fearing rejection. Instead, you're centered, and that calm, quiet power shifts how others approach you. The relationships that are built on genuine connection will remain, while those feeding off control or codependence will naturally fade. This isn't about carelessness. It's about clarity. Remember, when you embrace life's uncertainty, you allow space for authentic interactions, free from agendas or insecurities. At this point, you might be asking, okay, I understand the mindset shift, but how do I live it? How do I take this abstract idea and apply it when my mind feels overwhelmed or my heart feels heavy? Here are 3 micro habits that will help you navigate the unknown with grace and courage. First, practice radical presence. Start small. Each day, set aside just 5 minutes to ground yourself in what you feel now. Not what you need to solve, not what tomorrow requires of you. Just the sensations of your breath, the weight of your body, the life moving within you. The goal isn't to eliminate thoughts, it's to detach from them, let them pass like clouds. With time, this presence creates a kind of inner anchor, a peaceful stillness you carry with you, even into uncertainty. Second, reframe questions as invitations. Every time an anxious "what if" pops into your head, pause. Don't resist it. Instead, ask yourself, what is this teaching me? What can I notice about myself right now? By shifting from problem-solving to curiosity, you lighten the fear surrounding uncertainty. Last, loosen your grip on outcome. The next time you face a major life decision, make choices not from fear of getting it wrong, but from trust in the process. Understand that no single decision defines you forever. Release the pressure to be perfect. Progress is fluid. You are fluid. Each of these practices is a step toward unlearning your fear of being lost and reclaiming your ability to wander with purpose. Let's zoom out for a moment. What if life isn't a linear path from point A to point B? What if it's not about becoming anything, but simply being in the complexity, the beauty, and yes, the mystery of it all. We live in a culture that worships achievement. But when you look back at the most impactful moments of your life, were they the ones where you checked the box? Or moments where you dared to surrender when you stepped into the unknown and discovered something new about yourself? The truth is, you don't need to find yourself because you are never lost. You've simply been evolving all along. Everything you need is already within you, waiting for you to notice it. Picture this. You're standing at the edge of the ocean at sunrise. The horizon stretches out before you, infinite, unknowable. You pause, taking in the waves. You still don't have a map, but suddenly you feel okay with that. In fact, you feel free. This is your life. It doesn't need answers, it needs your trust. The horizon isn't there to intimidate you. It's there to remind you that beauty exists in not knowing what's next. Honor the wandering, honor the questions, and most of all, honor yourself for continuing the journey when certainty no longer held your hand. Comment below and declare it as truth. I trust the unfolding. Let's build a collective of wanderers, a community that lets go of control and chooses trust instead. By sharing this, you're not just affirming it for yourself, you're reminding someone else that it's okay to breathe and allow the unknown to guide them. If this video offered you some peace, even if for just a moment, subscribe for more reflections like these. Share this with someone who's been feeling stuck. Because sometimes, when the map no longer works, the act of wandering together is enough to find your way. Let's commit to the journey, not to the destination. Let's go deeper now, into the heart of what it means to trust the unknown. There's a quiet kind of courage involved in embracing uncertainty, a willingness to sit still with everything unresolved, unpolished, unplanned. And yet, in that stillness, something profound begins to happen. When you stop fighting for clarity, your mental storm begins to settle. It's like a lake after the rain. The turbulence fades and you begin to see beneath the surface. You notice things you couldn't before, parts of yourself buried by the constant noise of needing control. Here's a powerful meditation to try when life feels chaotic. Find somewhere peaceful where you won't be disturbed. Close your eyes and imagine yourself as a small seed planted in the soil. The ground surrounding you feels heavy, unfamiliar, dark, but it's nurturing you, preparing you to bloom in your own time. Now breathe deeply. Each inhale is nourishment. Each exhale releases your need to force growth. Trust that the roots will find their way. Trust that your potential is awakening in its own rhythm, even if you can't see it yet. This practice isn't about solving uncertainty. It's about surrendering to it. And in that surrender, you'll find more peace than any answer could ever bring. Let's consider a paradigm shift. What if uncertainty and discomfort, the very sensations you try to escape, are not obstacles at all? What if they're allies? Here's why. Discomfort is a signal that something powerful is happening. Every moment of uncertainty challenges your old beliefs, stretches your emotional edges, and invites you into transformation. It forces you to grow stronger. Think about it. When you lift weights, the resistance breaks your muscles so they can rebuild. When you face fears, the very act of leaning into them reshapes your courage. When you stop running from uncertainty, it reveals your capacity to adapt. Here's a question to ask yourself when you feel overwhelmed. What if this experience wasn't happening to me, but for me? Maybe the relationship that ended wasn't punishment, it was clearing space for deeper love. Maybe the closed door wasn't rejection, it was redirection towards something you're truly aligned with. And maybe feeling lost isn't failure. It's the first step in discovering a part of yourself that wouldn't have emerged under certainty. Uncertainty isn't here to break you. It's here to evolve you. If surrendering to uncertainty feels daunting, don't worry. It's not something that happens overnight. It's a practice. Here are 3 frameworks to not just survive uncertainty, but thrive in it. First, design intentional space for non-knowing. We live in a culture that demands answers, instant decisions, goals, plans. But what if you consciously chose moments to not know on purpose? For example, spend 1 full day each week without commitments or expectations. Let yourself wander in new environments, anything from a random bookshop to a hike. Explore for the sake of exploration alone, without needing to find anything. When you create space for openness, uncertainty starts to feel less threatening and more like a playground for discovery. Second, Shift your inner dialogue with affirmations. Reprogram the way you approach uncertainty by speaking transformation into your life. Try this affirmation. Even when I don't understand the path, I trust that everything is working for my highest good. Speak it aloud when doubt arises. Write it in a journal every morning. Over time, you'll notice how this intention shifts the way you interpret confusion. It becomes less rigid and more fluid. Finally, release the perfect outcome mindset. Every time you face a difficult decision or emotional obstacle, ask yourself, what would happen if I released the need for perfection? For instance, instead of obsessing over making the right career move or reaching an arbitrary goal, focus on one simple question: which choice feels most honest to me right now? Progress doesn't come from knowing everything or making flawless choices. It comes from showing up fully for the moment you're in. Here's something important to remember about navigating uncertainty. It doesn't just transform you. It transforms the way you connect with others. When you let go of needing to have it all figured out, you break free of the invisible expectations that control so many friendships or relationships. You stop chasing approval. You stop building walls. And most importantly, you stop pretending. This creates a ripple effect. Others begin to notice your authenticity, that you're no longer trying to perform for their validation. And in turn, they feel safe to show up authentically too. So how can you practice this shift in your daily interactions? Next time you're tempted to put up emotional walls or say, "I'm okay," without meaning it, pause and instead speak your truth simply. "I'm not sure where I am right now, but I know I'll figure it out." Notice how vulnerability pulls others closer, not control, not performance, not perfection. When you trust uncertainty, your relationships deepen into real connection, not the surface-level roles we often play. Here's one of life's most magical paradoxes. Chaos isn't something to fear. It's a teacher wrapped in disguise. Think of the traditional stories of rebirth. The phoenix doesn't rise without first crumbling into ash. The hero doesn't grow without being tested by the unknown. Nature itself doesn't evolve without destruction, clearing the way for new life. Life isn't linear. It moves in spirals, breaking, healing, and evolving beyond what you thought was possible. Feeling lost isn't failure. It's evidence you're leaving behind old limits and stepping into transformation. At this moment, there's one truth I want you to carry with you. You aren't broken. You aren't lost. You're just becoming something greater than you can yet see. Comment below and declare this truth. I release the need to have all the answers. I trust the process of becoming. Together, let's create an intentional space of resilience and surrender. By sharing this declaration, you'll not only affirm it for yourself, but remind others that the unknown isn't a void. It's the starting point of something miraculous. If this reflection helped you pause, breathe, or shift your perspective, subscribe for more insightful conversations. Share this video with someone whose heart feels heavy, whose mind feels chaotic. They deserve to know they aren't alone. Let's commit to wandering not as a mistake, but as a path. Let's remember that uncertainty is not a punishment, but a profound teacher.